Welcome to the world of Dell Optiplex, featuring a blazingly fast Pentium 3 clocked in at 1 GHz, onboard video and audio, high-speed Ethernet, and a hard drive that just doesn't want to work. And in the last episode that we did, we tried to get Half-Life 2 to run on this. By the time we actually had some sort of hope of getting it to work, the hard drive failed. So, excellent timing. Couldn't have been any better. And the goal in today's video is to take it out of this machine, put it into another Dell, and see if we can get it working. Now, I'm thinking we could try a defragmentation of the hard drive, but at the same time, if that doesn't work at all, if we can't get the internal hard drive to function anymore, we do have another Dell which has a functional hard drive, even though the computer itself has its own set of problems. First, we have to open it up. This is what they refer to as the clamshell design that Dell used in the early 2000s, basically around this time period. 512 megabytes of RAM, that Pentium 3 processor. This has a special sliding out tray. Okay, that was actually easier than I thought. It's a flex cable for IDE and a floppy drive connection, so not all that common considering most of the cables were of this variety. That's how I was assuming it was going to pop out, and that makes it a lot easier. It's a Caviar drive, enhanced IDE drive. This one, 20 gigabytes, date code of 2001. For the meantime, let's carefully close this back up. The DVD drive is actually on a IDE bus. It's not SATA, even though the hard drive is. And at the same time, it doesn't have any PS2 ports, which makes it a bit inconvenient at the moment because even though I do have a bunch of keyboards, they still have to be cleaned. And all the USB keyboards I have at the moment are plugged in elsewhere, and it's otherwise a big pain to get those out. There we go. Nice. That's the proper way to install a hard drive, right? We got the Pro Gaming setup here. The loud IDE hard drive is definitely noisier than the whole computer. So we do have Windows XP on this machine. It does say it is not formatted. I guess we could try Windows XP formatting, because maybe it'll do something differently. If or when it fails, we'll try defragmentation of the drive. I'm gonna leave quick format unchecked. Okay, this is probably gonna take a while, so we'll just jump cut to when it's done. I also tried a quick format because, well, we already have it plugged in, and yeah, it immediately popped up with this message saying it's unable to complete the format. Unfortunate, but kind of expected. There's really nothing else we can do except try to defrag the drive. And of course, it's not going to work. I'm assuming that this is probably because the drive itself is in a non-formatted state, so it probably can't do anything. That means we are unable to do anything with this drive right now. Let's just go ahead and take the one out of the other Dell and just continue from there. This might be just a bit too big to put on the desk. There it is. And here we have a gigantic and cool looking Dell logo on the side, and we also have a DVD rewritable drive, which is clearly not a factory drive. We've got a floppy drive which has the factory bezel, and we've got the name. So this is a Dimension 4550 made for Windows XP, and it also has a Pentium 4 inside. What's cool about this case is that it also has the same style as the Optiplex, in which it's the split in two halves clamshell style. So it's pretty easy to open up and access everything inside. And here it is, the inside of the Dimension. So what we're after is the hard drive right here. And what's nice is that because these are both Dells from the same time period, the drive sleds might actually be identical, so we might not even have to swap them out. For the meantime, I'll probably just put in the 20 gigabyte drive in here to store it somewhere. Here is also the main motherboard. Now, the main problem on this machine is capacitors. Most of these do appear to be fine, but as you can see, there are some with tape on it, and that's because they are leaky capacitors. The graphics card seems to be in okay condition, but the fan is a little concerning because it doesn't seem to spin freely. That means it may have overheated in the past, and that's why I'm not getting a signal. But I'm not sure if this is actually working or not because the computer itself has its own problems on the motherboard. It's unfortunate, but I guess we could probably try this out in the Optiplex to see if it'll do something. But right now we're just going to take out the hard drive, put it in the Optiplex, and we might even be able to boot into the copy of Windows on this thing. But I'm not sure if that copy of Windows is even there. So here are both hard drives. They're both Western Digital drives and very similar model numbers. So clearly the 200 indicates how much storage. So Western Digital 200 for 20 gigabytes and then Western Digital 800 for 80 gigabytes. And as predicted, they do look basically identical. I also pulled out the graphics card to see if it'll fit in the case, and if it does, we could probably try it out. And that is how you install a graphics card. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't fit in the case, at least when it's closed, but it does fit, and the AGP slot is actually fully seated. So the card might actually work, but the fan is still concerning because it doesn't seem like it wants to spin freely. But I guess in the end, after we actually get the hard drive up and running, we can see if this will do something. All of the ribbon and power cables that we unplugged are now plugged back in, and I did actually have to change out the green drive sled because for some reason the one that came on the 80 gigabyte drive didn't actually want to clip in all the way. It was around like a millimeter or so off. Despite being pushed in all the way, it just didn't want to fully clip in. So I put in the factory originals back, and this time it is actually clipped in. So that is fixed, and now we just have to power up the machine. I don't know exactly what I'm going to leave in the video up to this point. I've done a lot of work, but now that I've actually found a solution, it seems like everything was kind of contradictory and not worth including, so I might have some clips here and there, but basically I was trying to do something that there really was no point in doing when I already had another machine that was able to do it no problem. So basically what we have here, that's the hard drive that we put into the Optiplex. I took it back out. I was trying to boot Windows XP from the partition on it with the Pentium 3 Optiplex, but this hard drive came out of a Pentium 4 Dimension. This is also a Pentium 4 Dimension. So I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier. It's already the same architecture, and granted it is a couple of years newer than the other one, but once I loaded it up and put it in the machine, it immediately turned on and it booted into that hard drive no problem. So here's the Optiplex. I took out the hard drive obviously. For the meantime, I'm just going to leave it as is, but right now, there it is. So this is the hard drive, and it's actually working. There's a lot of programs installed on here, but it's actually working. And the reason why it was probably worth looking at this partition is because, well, here's some factory software from Dell that might prove to be useful, because this might have some special drivers or special programs that probably can't be found elsewhere, or maybe on only recovery CDs. If I can, I might even try to make a second partition for Windows 2000. So right now I have decided to make a secondary partition using the program ease us or ease us, and this allows Windows XP installations that have already been put onto a hard drive to make a secondary partition. Now, in later versions of Windows, starting with Vista, you're able to easily make a partition while you're still in Windows without having to deal with a secondary program, but with Windows XP, that wasn't possible. So we're doing this right now, and we're reducing the main XP installation to 60 gigabytes, and then the rest of the hard drive will be free for a Windows 2000 installation. And the reason why I haven't gone ahead and wiped it is because it does still have the Dell factory software, and unfortunately I don't think there is actually a way to recover everything completely, at least in the sense of making a fresh copy of Windows XP with the Dell software, unless I have the recovery CDs, because this doesn't have a recovery partition. And at the same time, in the copy of Windows, I wasn't able to find a recovery or reset option to wipe the drive and then reinstall Windows XP. So unless those CDs are saved online or I get some in the future, I might not be able to get a completely factory copy of Windows XP that came on the Dimension. But at least in this case, we'll at least be able to test out Half-Life on the Optiplex here, because that's the main point of this video, and I think we've gone down this rabbit hole long enough. It's kind of crazy to think that we're already messing around with Windows XP and other software, but this is how it goes, and it's all because of the original hard drive not wanting to work anymore. This is the next best thing. Yeah, this video has gone on way too long, or at least in the sense of way too many steps to just play one game. And there we have it. A new partition, and of course I named it Half-Life 2, and I gave it 16 gigabytes of free space, so we'll have enough space to install Windows 2000, install Half-Life, and then if nothing else happens, then we might have a chance of playing the game, but based on how our luck has been so far, I don't even know at this point. But I'm going to put the hard drive back into the Optiplex, install Windows 2000 off camera because I've already made a whole video about that. I'll have it linked right up here in the corner if you want to check that out, but I'll install that off camera, transfer the Half-Life 2 files. So we are at the point where we can actually try this out now. I have reinstalled all of the drivers for the machine, and now we can begin the decompressing of the file with 7-zip. So I guess we'll go ahead and extract the files. Unlike last time, it actually completed, and here is the file. We'll go ahead and run this, and it does look pretty similar to the actual native installer, but of course this time we'll actually be able to use it. So we'll go ahead and make some shortcuts as well, and now we just have to wait a little bit more and Half-Life should be ready to go. And of course it wasn't going to be this easy. What fun! Well, the Dimension is saving the day yet again because, well, it actually works on here. Now, granted, this is Windows XP and it's newer than Windows 2000, but the setup is actually working. So the plan is to install it on here and then see if we can copy everything over directly to the Windows 2000 installation. So basically the game as it's already installed, and even if it doesn't work, I'm still going to call this a success because if it works on Windows XP, it's still an older version of Windows, and it still would be very cool to see it actually running on genuine 2000s hardware. And it seems to be working. So it took a little while to load, but here it is. Half-Life 2. Now granted, it's still on Windows XP, so I guess we'll go ahead and try a new game. And well, we have to start at the beginning, but we'll click on load new game. I guess this is as close as it gets to the real deal because we do have the loading screens as well.
So, what do you got? Mr. Freeman. With that one, spill the ashes.
Well, that was awesome to see. Now, I actually didn't check what the graphics settings were set to at. So we're at 800 by 600, but I guess we could go up to 1280 by 1024. So it actually automatically set everything to high. I guess we could change the resolution real quick. Okay, it did actually work. It just took quite a while to load, actually. I'm assuming the textures would probably work better as it was set on the lower resolution. Now, I don't currently have a functional spacebar on this keyboard, so excellent choice on that part. But for a 2005 era machine, this is running actually pretty well. I would try jumping, but again, I'd have to get another keyboard. But the game is running really well. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time actually playing the game right now because I still want to see if it's possible to make it run on Windows 2000. So I'm copying all of the game files from the hard drive onto a flash drive. So it took a while, but it did actually copy onto the flash drive, and it does actually work as it is. Now, I'm going to make a copy of this before we actually try it out on the Optiplex, because I don't want to have to copy this over again in case something bad happens. So here's the copy from the flash drive that we transferred over from the Dell Dimension, and honestly, I kind of expected this to not completely work because, well, it's a different architecture, different operating system, and yeah, it just doesn't work at all. So Half-Life 2, Half-Life Source, Counter-Strike, that doesn't want to work. So that is not the solution. And also, I installed Windows 2000 Extended Kernel for additional support because I had a problem with the installer. Now that I'm trying to do it, it loads for like 30 seconds and it just won't install. Ever since the reinstall of Windows 2000, it hasn't felt the same. And yeah, there's that error message. The installer did open up again, but now it still has some sort of problem. So I just realized that I don't actually have a good ending to this video, but if you can already tell, Windows 2000 is just not going to work, at least at this moment in time. Whether it be a combination of the hardware, Windows 2000, whatever the case is, it's just giving me problems, and I kind of want to move on from this because it feels like we're just doing the exact same thing. So instead of focusing on Windows 2000, we're going to upgrade to Windows XP on the Optiplex. We already know that it actually works on Windows XP because it worked the first time on the Dimension. Now, there is still the possibility that the hardware on the Optiplex itself is still not going to allow us to run the game, but with Windows XP we should be able to actually install and see if we can run the game, because clearly it prefers XP versus 2000. I'm sure that you can get it working on 2000, but there is something that is missing from my installation on the Optiplex. We're gonna end the video here. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the consistent failures of Windows 2000, but at the same time actually getting some progress with XP. And if you enjoyed it enough, then stick around for the next installment of this Half-Life madness, because, well, I don't know how long it's going to take. I would like to see it working on the Optiplex, but whatever the case may be, we're going to see if we can actually do something. If you enjoyed it, then consider subscribing so you can stay tuned for other crazy videos like this. And as always, thank you very much for watching.